Hey everyone, Parallel here, and welcome to Star Trek Online. Here it is, the reward for the summer event 2016. I am coming to you from the bridge of the brand new Vorgon Xyfius Tier 6 Heavy Escort. This ship is the reward that you get. It's the free ship for the summer 2016 event. And if you have been faithfully grinding the daily quest, you should have just earned enough of the tokens to be able to purchase the ship to complete the project. I just completed this myself just a day ago. And so if you've been grinding away at the event, you should be getting it here soon. If you haven't missed any days, you should have it already. So what I'd like to do in this video is take a look at this ship, give an overview of the stats, take a look at the ship visuals, the whole laydown of the ship, including the bridge officer layout and the performance. I'd also like to talk about the build that I'll be using on the ship to demonstrate it. I will be using a Beamscort build, and I've actually become quite attached to Beamscort builds. I actually rather enjoy the playstyle. And I thought I'd give a few tips and tricks there on how to optimize a Beamscort type playstyle, which I think actually fits this ship quite well. As it's a heavy escort, it's a little bit less maneuverable than more of the faster escorts out there. So I think the Beamscort build will work great on this. And finally, I do want to close out with showing the ship in action. I'll take it in a Argala Patrol, and also take it through an ISA and parse the results and see how it actually performs with the Beamscort build. All right, so let's jump in here and take a look. So here is the bridge. It is a custom bridge. It's very cool. It's quite small, however, but has a pretty nifty little effect. Apparently all of the bridge officer stations here are all contained within some kind of I'm not sure what you call this, an energy field of some kind. And if you look up, they're all kind of connected up to the ceiling. Now I know the Vorgons are from the future, right? So maybe this is some kind of a time, I don't know, some kind of timeline or how it's showing how things are connected. But it's a pretty cool looking bridge. In fact, it's kind of funny. The floor here, if you take a look at the floor, it almost looks like it looks like it's made out of Toxu Tot crystal. Like the entire floor is made out of one giant Toxu Tot crystal. Pretty cool looking. Nothing too special on the bridge. Just pretty much your standard amenities. Nothing too fancy. Nothing like being able to access your the market or anything like that. Just your standard stuff, but pretty cool looking bridge. Let me just do a quick pan around so you can get a look. There's no ready room or anything like that. Just what you see. Just this one room. But nevertheless, it is nice that they did take the time to add a custom bridge. Always nice to see. All right, so let's head out. Let's go ahead and leave the ship here. And let's start taking a look at the stats on this thing, and also take a look at what would be some good builds here. Like I said, I do want to do a Beamscort build. That's what I've been testing out on this ship. And I will go ahead and go into that. Now, just a disclaimer before I get too far into the build. Just keep in mind that in Star Trek Online, there are a lot of viable builds out there. You can build cannons, you can build dual beam banks, you can do the Beamscort build like what I'm doing. You can build torps. There's lots of ways to build ships nowadays, and many of them are viable. There's lots of options out there, so don't take this build as gospel. Build how you want, but I do want to show the Beamscort build because I think it does fit this ship well, and there are a few things about Beamscorts that I think make them actually very good and very viable, and I just want to make sure to share those with you here today. All right, now back to the ship itself. You can see here I'm just panning around the ship a little bit. It looks fantastic. Oops, didn't mean to do that. But then there you can see the effect of chemosite on this ship. Those are the hard points. Pretty nice looking ship though. I'm currently using the Dyson regenerative shield on this. I think it looks excellent on this ship. And what can I say? Tell me if I'm wrong here, but does this not look like a White Star from Babylon 5? I swear this thing looks very similar to the White Star. In fact, that's kind of why I chose this shield. It almost makes it look like a White Star. But very cool looking ship. Kind of almost that organic look to it. I like it a lot. And you can see the relative size of it here. It's a pretty small ship. I can park it next. They got a Shishar over here. Let's go ahead and park next to that thing. And you can see it's yeah, it's a small ship. Small maneuverable escort, much smaller than any of the capital ships. All right, I will take a look at it in the ship Tailor here in a few minutes, but first let's run down the actual stats of the ship. It is a, they call it a heavy escort, and when you look down the stats of the ship, it's kind of a strange classification. It's more like a, I put it more into like the destroyer range almost, where it has more hull and less maneuverability than your typical escort. So they call it a heavy escort. You could almost think of it as like a heavy destroyer, or it actually compares very close if you've flown a Morrigu, the Romulan Morrigu, or the Tier 6 Mogai, basically. Very, very similar to that ship. Almost the exact same weapons layout, almost the same maneuverability, exact same console layout of the for the Fleet Morrigu. So very similar ship to that. So you can see here it does have the 4-3 weapons layout. You got 2 device slots, you got your 4 engineering, 2 science, and 5 tactical. And you'll forgive me here if I go into a lot of detail. I do like to go into a lot of detail in my build videos, which makes them sort of long, but I know a lot of people, particularly new players, that don't know what a lot of these items are, appreciate having the extra explanation on them. So forgive me there if I do go into a little more detail. Feel free to skip ahead to the action if you'd like to see that. I will put timestamps down below. All right. So this ship, it does have its own mastery rank, mastery set here. I believe this is your standard escort mastery. So you get your 5% accuracy, you get your 5% defense, you get your +10 kinetic and all energy, and at tier 4 you get your standard 2.5 crit chance. And this ship, is being a tier 6 ship, does get a starship trait at tier 5. You can see here it is this pretty new trait, kind of unique, called Harasser Mines. Essentially what this thing does is whenever you activate beam fire at will, or is it scatter volley? Let's take a look at over the traits tab here. Harasser Mines. Scatter volley. Yep, scatter volley or beam fire at will. Then it will cause your directed energy weapons to trigger a chronoton mine to appear within 1.5 kilometers of the target. And it can happen once every 20 seconds. And it does, you can see here, it does about 2.3k kinetic damage. I'm not sure how that is buffed up by other kinetic buffs you may have going, but it can only occur once every 20 seconds. Honestly, just taking a look at this from the wording and a little bit of testing I did earlier, it's a pretty lackluster trait. 1 extra mine every 20 seconds is, for an extra 2k some damage. That's, even with the shield penetration there, it's not that fantastic of a trait at all, I'm not gonna lie. But if you're, if you don't have any traits, and this is a new ship, if you're a free-to-play player and this is your first tier 6 ship, it will certainly help out your DPS a little bit. So I'd recommend slotting it there if you don't have anything better to do, but there are better traits out there for sure. All right, let's go back to the ship here. Now we can take a look at the stats, but I'm just going to read off the wiki page here real quick that this thing has a shield modifier of 1. A little bit on the high side for escorts. Usually the escorts are in like the 0.9 plus range, but pretty average. and it does have a turn rate of 15. That's actually on the low side of escorts, which is why this is more of a I mean, they call it a heavy escort, which is puts it right down there in the destroyer range with a 15 turn rate. Still pretty maneuverable, but you're not going to be turning on a dime like, you know, like a Rysian Corvette or a Raider or you know, other the faster escorts out there. Inertia rating of 60, again, not the highest. Impulse of 0.2, again, not the highest. Pretty much on the low side of escorts as far as maneuverability and speed go. And you do get plus 15 weapon power and plus 5 engine power. So those are the base stats. I'll get into the actual ship stats here. Oh wait, hit points. 47k hit points at level 60. You can see here on my build I actually have 60,000. But yeah, the base hull is 47,000. So that is pretty high. That's pretty high for an escort. So that's kind of the trade-off there. This is kind of a more engineering, you can see with the tech, or sorry, with the engineering consoles here. You can see it is more focused on, has more of a kind of an engineering focus with a higher hull and a slower speed than your typical escort. Now quickly we'll take a look at the bridge officer. You do get a Lieutenant Commander Universal / Intel, very nice. You get a Commander Tactical, Ensign Tactical, and Lieutenant Commander Engineering and Lieutenant Science. So you do get the Lieutenant Commander Engineering, and if you wanted to, you could make the Universal an engineering slot if you wanted to give it even more of an engineering flavor. I think the 3 slots here for engineering is probably fine. I ended up using an extra tactical officer there. But yeah, there are definitely options there with that Lieutenant Commander Universal. Alright, so that's the basic rundown of the ship. Now I would just like to take a few minutes to talk about the build that I'm using here, so you can see what equipment I've got slotted, and I would like to talk about the traits that I'm using, and also the duty officers that I'm using, and just kind of give a general overview of how a Beamscort build works. Now, there's nothing fancy here. Beamscort build just means beams on an escort, particularly beam arrays. Everyone kind of laughs at this build, saying, oh, who'd put beam arrays on an escort? Escorts are for, you know, that frontal firepower, you want your big alpha strike and so on. But I found that Beamscort build is very fun to play, and it's still extremely effective as far as DPS goes. And I'll show you exactly why that is. Now, it's actually a trait. There is a trait here which I consider key to Beamscort builds. And in fact, I think Beamscort builds are the only true build that can actually take advantage of this trait more easily than any other kind of build. And this is the trait right here. So let's start out here in the Starship traits. Improved pedal to the metal. So this is a really good trait. And basically when you are at full throttle, the more time you spend at full throttle, you get a stacking buff. And it takes several seconds to build this up. So basically, for each stack, you get 2% all damage, which is a Cat 2, and for every 2 seconds you spend at full throttle, up to a 20% max. So basically, after 10 seconds of full throttle, you get a 20% all damaged Cat 2 buff all the time. And it does say all bonuses are dropped if you go below full throttle, and that's true. It does drop actually quite quickly. But the key to this trait, and why it works on escorts, especially like the Xyfius here, is with Beamscorts, you have the turn rate where you can always have your broadside firing at the enemy and keep up that full throttle. See, part of the problem with an escort is they're so fast, right? If you're doing an alpha strike with a frontal firing escort and you're going at full throttle towards the enemy, you're only going to be on target for a few seconds, and then you're going to fly right past them, and you're going to have to do a whole 180 to come back around. That whole time where you're maneuvering around, doing a 180 to come back into your weapons arc, that's all wasted DPS. Whereas with a Beamscort build, you can stay at full throttle and just keep your broadside to the enemy. So it's very easy to stay broadside to an enemy and stay at full throttle the full time. So your weapons are always on target, and you don't have wasted time where your weapons are not on target and you're trying to maneuver. It works very, very well. That said, without improved pedal to metal, I'm not sure I would recommend a Beamscort build because the frontal weapons do have higher base damages, like a dual beam banks. I believe it's they have 20 or 30% more base damage, which if you're not taking advantage of this pedal to the metal, you would be doing more damage with the frontal type build. And see, that's the other thing is usually when you have a front forward firepower build, it's almost always better just to go up to your enemy and slow down, or even come to a complete stop and use like an anchor trait or something, but to slow down and keep them in your frontal arc for the whole time. And in which case, you're going to slow down, you're not going to be at full throttle, and you're not going to benefit from this trait. So I just don't think forward firing builds work very well with improved pedal to the metal, but Beamscorts work great. And this buff from improved pedal to the metal actually brings those beam arrays up closer, not quite all the way, but up to very close to what the normal like a dual beam bank would be doing because of that 20% buff. And just one thing to keep in mind is that you just have to be at full throttle. You don't actually, your actual ship speed does not matter. Like if you're at full throttle and you get tractor beamed, it's okay. You'll still be getting that buff as long as your throttle down here is at max. You're good to go. All right, so getting into the actual build here with the actual equipment. I'm using, of course, beam arrays. That's the key to a Beamscort build. You can see here, I'm using an epic. I'm using a phaser damage type on this build, just because this character does have phasers. Because on this character, I like to fly the the Fleet Phantom Escort, which is also another absolutely fantastic escort. But I like to use phaser damage on that because it works well with that build. So I thought I'd just transfer my top phaser weapons over here and give it a try on this ship. Now, you'll see from the console on this ship, I think they kind of designed this more with Tetrion in mind. So if you wanted to actually take advantage of the console the ship comes with, you want to go with Tetrion. But for this build, I don't have Tetrions up at Mark 14 Epics, so it's a large investment to get a new damage type. So for now, I'll just have to use the phasers. You can see here, my mods are not perfect. I do have some damage 3 pens. I got 3 of those, but the rest of them are some combination of crit D and damage and pen. All right. For the space set, I will be using the Iconian 4-piece. There are lots of different space sets you can use, but right now Iconian is considered one of the best because of its set bonuses, and also its hot restarts are a very nice little bonus there, little advantage that they give. But we'll take a look at them here. The pieces themselves are actually quite good, but it is real more the set bonuses that make the Iconian really worthwhile. And yeah, the phaser beams are just, they do have the pen mod, so these are actually crafted phasers, nothing special, no biomolecular phasers or anything like that. These are just your standard crafted phasers with pen mods. Pen mods are still the best mod out there. And then, you want to go with the crit D and damage for the remainder of the mods, with accuracy and crit hit being kind of subpar still. So yeah, that's what you'll want to go with as far as the actual weapons. All right, back to the space set here. The deflector is, it's a nice deflector. It does give you hull capacity, shield capacity, shield restoration, kinetic resistance. It's a pretty good solid deflector. The impulse engines, pretty standard. They do give you some defense. Engine power setting, 1 at 100% throttle, 10 energy damage resistance rating, kind of cool. Pretty standard engines, nothing too fancy there. Now the Iconian warp core, to get the 4-piece, you do of course have to use the warp core. And it's an okay warp core. I do have it here up to ultra rare, so it has the amp mod. You do have to get it up to ultra rare to get the amp mod. The very rare one does not have it. Of course, you do want the amp mod. If anyone's not familiar, this little, if you see the word amp there next to the engine, that amp mod allows you, if you read down below, it says plus 6.6 to all damage for each subsystem with 75 or more power. Basically, that is a large damage buff. If you have all four of your systems, all four of your power systems up to or above 75 power, you will get full advantage of that amp buff, which is, you know, a full 25 plus 26-ish percent damage buff. So very good there. Otherwise, it does give you additional engine power, and it does give you plus 5 max engine power, which is kind of cool. Anything else here? It gives you, so it gives you the 7.5% of engine power to shields. Not the best. It would be nice if that were weapon to shields or weapon to engines would be better. Warp core efficiency, that's nice. It gives you a little bit of boost to your power levels when your power setting is low. 50% reduction on transwarps, yes. Okay, there's the hot restart. Hot restart automatically removes weapons disabled condition. Very, very nice. That hot restart is amazing. It keeps your weapons online, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It keeps you like, especially when you're fighting things like Tholians or all kinds of other aliens that will put your systems offline. I believe the hot restart also actually works after you use override subsystem safeties, and at the end of that time it does put your weapons offline. And I believe the hot restart actually does help with that, get some backup faster. Very cool. So even though it's not the best, it's not as good as like an elite fleet warp core out there with the, with the reduction to weapon power cost, but it does have its own little perks like that hot restart. Very nice. And it does come with amp, so it's not bad. All right, finally, the shield, of course, the Iconian Resistance. It's a resilient shield, which gives you the 5% absorption and 5% bleed through. Pretty good. Again, this also has the hot restart where it removes the shield disabled condition. Again, very nice. It's kind of funny, I've used this in, there are some missions out there where your shields are automatically down, like if you're in a nebula or something. And it's funny, this hot restart will keep trying to bring your shields back up, and then it'll go right back down, and then they'll try to bring it back up, and they'll go right back down. It's quite amusing. And finally, let's take a look at the set bonus, which is why most people like the 4-piece Iconian. Let's do good info on here. The 2-piece bonus gives you the whenever you distribute your shields, it gives you some regeneration. And once it's triggered, it goes down on a 30-second cooldown. Just a little extra healing, and it does scale with your ship shield restoration. Not the best thing in the world, but the 3-piece is very good. So when firing energy weapons, 5% chance to increase all energy damage by 15% for 8 seconds, and it gives it to all of your allies, and it stacks 3 times. So basically, if you've got all your energy weapons going, this is almost a permanent buff to you and your team. And you could stack it up 3 times, so that's 45% to everyone within 10 kilometers. That's a fantastic buff. And it does buff yourself, so very nice. And then finally, I do actually like the 4-piece, and this is why here, because this is a really good, this is a active ability, so it's a clicky. And it gives you, you and your team a nice buff, which gives you plus 30%, 33% all damage, plus 20% maximum hull, and flight speed. Very good little buff, and that all damage is a Cat 2 buff, I believe. So that's for you and your whole team. It's kind of like almost like an attack pattern alpha for you and your whole team. Pretty good. This is the clicky right down here. Yeah, there you go. So it's it's clicky. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and it's a very nice buff to you and your team for damage. Stack that up with all your other buffs and get a massive alpha strike. All right, anything else on the build here? I am using a kinetic cutting beam here. I still do like, on some builds, I still do like to use the two-piece Borg. So kinetic cutting beam, you get that from the Omega reputation. Over here in your reputation tab, Omega Strike Force, there is the project down there for the kinetic cutting beam. And from that same reputation, you can also get this console down here called the Assimilated Module. It's a universal console. It's good for throwing into your engineering slots. And it has it's a pretty decent console on its own. It does have some minor crit chance. 10% crit severity is decent. That's a nice little console buff there. Extra weapon power setting, some hull regeneration, and expertise. But the main reason you want to run these two pieces is for the two-piece set bonus, which I will show you here, which is down here. Omega Weapon Amplifier. 2.5% chance to self, where it applies Omega Weapon Amplifier. Basically, whenever this triggers, when you're in combat, it gives you plus 10 current weapon power, plus 500 weapon power resistance rating, and plus 500 maximum weapon power resistance rating. Basically, when this triggers, you get a huge reduction to your weapon power cost. So whenever you're firing your phasers, firing your cannons, they cost less to fire, which means it drains less from your weapons power system, which means your EPS and everything else has a much better chance to keep up, because your weapons are all power costing less. You know, the base power cost of all your weapons is 10 power, right? So that will, when that proc comes up, it will massively reduce the actual cost of the weapons, and it will keep your weapon power pegged out, which again keeps your DPS as high as possible during your firing cycle. So it's a very nice two-piece set bonus. These two are actually quite easy to obtain, even for newer players. If you just go into the Omega reputation, I think it only takes like tier 2. You can get them very quick. For the remainder of my consoles here, I am running a Plasmonic Leech. This is one of the most amazing consoles in existence, and even to this day it holds up well for energy weapons. This is the best single console in the game, period, bar none. And at the time of this video, they are actually coming down in price on the exchange, because these Plasmonic Leeches came out of one of the old lockboxes, and with the new Infinity lockbox that recently was announced, these have become much more common. So there's a lot of them on the market, and you can pick them up for, I think they're under 20 million now. It's crazy. So very good console there. Definitely, you know, if you're starting out and you want to save up and you say, what is the single console I should get and put on my ship to improve my performance? This is it, Plasmonic Leech. And with the prices coming down as much as they are, it's a good time to start saving and pick one up. I mean, in the old days, these things were going up to like 90 million. So having them down below 20 million, it makes them much more affordable even for newer players if you save up. So why is it so good? Well, because this thing is a passive console, and whenever you're firing energy weapons at the target, it will drain power from that target and give it to you. So you can see here it's giving me, from the target, it takes away 2.6 from all power settings and gives me 2.6 all power settings. And it lasts for 15 seconds, and it stacks 8 times, I want to say. Since it stacks up 8 times and it gets refreshed very often, basically what this boils down to is it gives you almost a free, a minimum of like a free 16 or more power to all 4 power systems all the time. Absolutely fantastic. This is what allows you to get all of your power systems up above 75 to take advantage of your amp. This also feeds that power. When that power is drained from the enemy, it feeds it into your weapon system. So it actually is almost like a little bit of an artificial EPS flow into your power to help keep your weapon power high. So it's just an amazing console all around. Just make sure you get a lot of the Drain X skill mod. It used to be called Flow Caps. Since the skill revamp is called Drain X, you can see here I got the Drain X modifier on this console here. What is my what is Drain X considered? Drain Expertise, okay. So you can see my skill here is 144. If you can get higher than that, depending on how you spec out your character. But this Plasmonic Leech will scale with that, and the more it scales up, the more power it will put into all of your subsystems. Fantastic console. The next console I'm running here is the Regenerative Integrity Field. Now this one is a bit of an exclusive console. Newer players will not be able to acquire this, but the only way to get this console is from the Kobali Samsar event ship, which was from the previous anniversary a year ago. So if you didn't participate in that, you are kind of out of luck to get this console, which is unfortunate. You might get lucky, and when the console version of STO comes out, I'm hoping, this is just my speculation here, but I'm hoping that they do bring back some of these older consoles and older weapons, exclusive things that they will, that console players will probably need to get their hands on to be competitive. So, but this is a very nice console. If you do have the Kobali Samsar, this is a fantastic console. You can put it on any ship, and basically what it does is it gives you a passive hull healing bonus, but it also gives you an active hull healing bonus where when you click it, it gives you a huge hull heal, and then it gives you a huge hull regeneration based on your energy weapon damage going out. Basically, when you're firing all your weapons on target with this much of a damage build, you're going to be getting so much regeneration coming in that for that, I believe 20 seconds. For that 20 seconds, you are damn near invulnerable. You could still be alpha striked, but your regeneration is so high, most incoming damage will be very quickly healed. And this is kind of my one console I like to put on most ships. Most of my builds, I like to go mostly offensive and just put one console slot for survivability. And this Regenerative Integrity Field fulfills that extremely well. All right, next up here is the console that actually comes with the ship. And as you can see here, it is more of a Tetrion-focused console, but let's take a look at it. So it is the Harasser Probes console. It gives you 25% Tetrion damage and 8% crit severity. That's actually not a bad console. If you were actually a Tetrion damage weapons, this is a pretty good console. It does also have an active ability where you can launch your Harasser Probes. Creates 2 level 61 Harasser Probes for 120 seconds. That's a long time. And they're kind of cool. I'll show them when we go to Argala, but you click it, and they launch. Actually, it looks like I can launch it here. I don't think you have to have a target. Let's launch them here and see. Can I get a view of them? So there are the Harasser Probes right there. But I didn't realize they last for 120 seconds. That's kind of cool. You can actually have them out for a long time. They shoot a little Tetrion beam at your target, and they do follow it around. It's kind of like a little mini fighter. I have not parsed their damage, so I don't really know if they do much damage, but even with the passive abilities with a Tetrion build, that's a pretty good console. And having them always out there, harassing for you, that's pretty cool. Alright. As far as science consoles go, this one only has 2 consoles for science. That's kind of I consider kind of one of the drawbacks of the ship. It's very limited in the science consoles, so you can't really stack up a lot of these consoles right here, which are the plasma generating, basically the plasma explosion consoles, the embassy consoles. You get these consoles, you have to be in a fleet, and you have to go to the fleet embassy, and you have to use your fleet credits to buy these consoles. But these consoles are very much worth it, because what they do is you can see here, it does actually give you Drain X. You can actually buy them with different modifiers. There's also ones with Particle Gen, which is actually very good as well if you're going with a Particle Gen build. So the console, this one that I picked here, does give you Drain X, or Flow Caps as it used to be, and reduces your threat. And most importantly, if you look at the bottom, it has that plasma explosion. That's why people like these consoles, and that's why people like to stack as many of these consoles as possible, is for that plasma explosion. It is a passive bonus and makes all of your energy weapons, actually I believe it does on Torps too. Yeah, so it makes all your weapons proc. No, I guess it is only energy. Haha. It is only energy weapons, that's right. But it gives them a chance to proc a plasma damage explosion. It is actually an explosion, so it has a little bit of an area of effect, I think 3 kilometers, and it does decent damage. You can see there it's about 4k plasma damage for, it does 100% penetrate shields, and 2.5% chance to proc. Now, they recently changed these where they proc per shot now instead of per cycle. Pretty cool. So they proc a lot more often. When they did that, they also nerfed the base damage a bit. But you do get more consistency out of these now. So these still, to this day, remain one of the best consoles. Usually, you know, if you have a heavy science ship, you want to stack up as many of these as possible in your science slots. That's why science consoles are so valuable, or science console slots, and only having 2 of them is kind of limiting. The other science console I do like, I waffle back and forth if I prefer this or just having another of the plasma explosion consoles, but in this case it is the temporal disentanglement suite. This console gives you a scaling crit chance and crit severity buff and gives you a little bit of aux power. And the crit chance and severity goes up to 2.5% crit chance and 10% crit severity, and it's based on your aux power. Now, because of my builds, I always like to run high aux power anyway, so it makes this actually a very good console. It also does give you a shield hardness of 3%. I mean, that's just, I guess, a nice little thing on the side. So, pretty good console. I do like it. Although there could be an argument to be made where it would just be better to have another of the plasma explosion consoles. But it also gives you the 22.5% shield capacity and the shield strength. So it's kind of nice that it has some defensive capability on top of the offense. To get this console, anyone can get this one. You get it from a episode. And you'll forgive me here because I already forgot what episode it is. I don't recall if it's in the Iconian arc.
Teams in the Kiana system require your assistance.
Aha, I guessed it.
They have been running thousands of
it is the Butterfly. That's right. You get it from Butterfly, and it's a good console. But you do have to be level 60. You know, it is one of the higher level. Is the Iconian arc. So there it is. Now for tactical consoles, I am of course using the vulnerability locators. These, again, you get these, you have to be in a fleet. You have to go to your fleet Dyson Spire, go to your fleet Spire, and you can pick these up from the vendor there for fleet credits and also some dilithium. And what these give you is you can pick one based on your damage type. So obviously I'm using phasers, so I picked phaser damage. But these also give you a crit chance bonus. Each one of these, and it stacks, so each one of these gives 1.8% crit chance bonus. You can stack up 5 of them here, and it works very well. These are much nicer than just your standard tactical consoles that only give you the damage bonus, whereas these also give you the crit chance. So these are actually much, much better than your standard consoles. But you do have to, again, you do have to be in a fleet. These are kind of expensive. To get 5 of these, I believe it's 250,000 fleet credits, because each one's 50,000. So that's a bit of grinding. You'll have to grind to be able to get these onto your build. But absolutely recommended, almost required if you want to be in a really top high-end DPS build. All right. Ooh, so that was a lot of detail there. So hopefully that helped for as far as the equipment goes. Yeah, hopefully it gives you some ideas of some consoles you can shoot for and things you can get that you want to build towards. Some of these, again, like I said, they take a lot of fleet credits, so it does take quite a bit of grinding to get there. Especially the epic weapons, they take a lot of grinding to upgrade. All right, let's quickly go over here to the skills. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I will scroll down and just show my build. Now, the key thing here in this build is, as you can see, it is a heavy science build. And the whole reason for the heavy science build is to get the science ultimate ability, which I'll try to mouse over down here, called probability manipulation. This ability is awesome. This ability is incredible. Out of all the ultimate abilities, this one is far and away the best. And so if you want to go for a deep build, even on a tactical character, I'd highly recommend this ultimate ability. It is so good. And if you're a new player, this ability is even better, because the way this thing works is when you pop this ability, let me show it to you here. So if I go on my stat page here, you can see right now my crit chance is 28%. All right, pop this ability, goes right up to 50%. That is a huge buff. And the thing is, if your crit chance, even say you're a new player and your crit chance is really low, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it pops it all the way up to 50. That is amazing. So I highly recommend this, especially for new players. If you are if you have a very high-end build, there are arguments to be made to just go with a balanced skill spec without going deep into one, just because it scales a little bit better. But this ability is just so good. And to add on to it, you can put some more in here if you get the 2 points additional. So a total of 26 points spent in science. Means you can also get these two nice things here. Probability window increases the duration of it. So basically it's up for 30 seconds with probability window, and the refresh is 90. So you can have this thing up about 1/3 of the time. Fantastic. Plus, the other one there is probability penetration. That makes it so while this is up for those 30 seconds, foes will suffer a stacking damage resistance debuff when crit. So you're going to be critting a lot, and you're going to be stacking damage resistance debuffs on all your enemies while you're doing it. Absolutely phenomenal ultimate ability here in your skill tree. If you're not going to go all the way down for the science ultimate, I would just recommend a good balanced build with a pretty good focus in tactical, with, of course, you'll always want to make sure you pick up long range targeting from science no matter what your build is, because that's just so dang good. And yeah, otherwise you probably want to focus more on tactical. In particular, more hull penetration would be good. I wish I could, I just don't have enough on this points on this build. One other thing to note in my build, I do like to go into 3 points into tactical readiness, because I don't have a Zamoc duty officer, which reduces your tactical recharge times. So this is actually quite good for me. I consider this if you can't afford a Zamoc, this is a option you can consider, just to make sure all of your attack patterns and beam fire at wills are up more often. All right, next up, traits. Now, like I said, the key to the Beamscort build is the improved pedal to the metal trait. And I think I kind of explained that already. But basically, you want to stay at full throttle when you're flying this. Stay at full throttle and keep your broadside onto the enemy. And I actually really like this on 4-3 type escorts. I think fit also very well for the Beamscort build. Like if you were a 5-2, with 5 forward weapons, you're kind of more focusing on the forward firepower of the ship. I mean, you can still do a Beamscort build with 5-2. It's not going to hurt anything, but I think with 4-3 escorts, I think having that broadside is a little bit better, because you do have the 3 rear weapons. Usually, you'd be putting turrets back there, which are lower DPS, or putting like omnidirectionals back there, which again are lower DPS. So the broadside seems to work a little bit better. So the Beamscort build kind of, I would say I'd prefer it towards like the 4-3 type escorts instead of the 5-2. All right. Not going to go through ground traits, not looking at that right now, but space traits. Fleet Coordinator is very good. This is one of the default traits everyone gets. It's a 2% to all damage per team member, including self. So it gives you that little extra 2% damage bonus all the time. And when you're on a team, it's fantastic at 10%. Very good. Coalition Starship Tactics. This is kind of just an interesting little kind of a multi-purpose buff that you get depending on your team composition. I believe it also does include yourself. Yeah, I believe it does include yourself. But the nice thing there is if you have a lot of tactical teammates, it gives you a defense bonus. So I usually slot this instead of something like evasive, although elusive, I mean. Although in this build I do slot both of them, and I'll explain that in just a moment here. Another one I slot is operative, which gives you 1% crit and 2% crit severity. Could be an argument to swap this one out for others. It's not the best trait out there, but this is again with the trait revamp that was done recently. This is one of those free traits everyone gets, so it's pretty good. Now the next trait here I recently just purchased, and thanks to the Infinity Lockbox, this trait is much more affordable now. This trait is Inspirational Leader. This thing used to be a very exclusive trait. I mean, we're talking like 200 million, maybe more, and now you can buy it for about 20 million after the Infinity Lockbox event. So this became much more common, which is awesome. So much more obtainable for newer players. Again, 20 million is nothing to sneeze at, but certainly within the realm of being obtainable as opposed to like 200 million, which is like, forget it. But the Inspirational Leader is basically whenever you use a bridge officer ability, it gives you a temporary buff where I believe it gives you plus 10 to all, plus 10% chance activating any bridge officer ability. It grants 10% to most starship skills for 15 seconds. And stacks 3 times. So that's pretty good. So that's like, potentially plus 30. I haven't seen it stack up to 3 that often, but that's potentially up to plus 30 to all starship abilities. That is amazing. So this trait is amazing. If you're going to splurge on a lockbox trait, this would probably be the one I would recommend to get. Since this is a Beamscort, I'm also using Beam Training, which is just a flat-out 5% beam. This is again with the revamped trait system. This is another base trait everyone gets. The next one I will be using is Beam Barrage. This one gives you 2% all beam damage for 30 seconds and stacks up to 3 times. Whenever you use a beam fire at will, it will trigger this to stack. Now to get this trait, you actually need to get up your crafting school, your beam crafting school. You have to get this up to level 15, and that will unlock this trait. In fact, all of the crafting schools, when you get them to level 15, will unlock a trait. But if you're using a beam weapon, of course, the beam trait is the one you want to use. I'm also using Self-Modulating Fire, which is whenever you have an outgoing critical hit, you get plus 50% shield pen for 10 seconds. And it can trigger once every 45 seconds. And with the high crit rate build, basically every 45 seconds, you're going to be getting 10 seconds of 50% shield pen. Very nice. Especially for a Torp build. This is very good for a Torp build. But even then, I still like it. Just extra shield pen's always nice. All right, Point Blank Shot. This is another. This is actually a trait you get from a episode. I believe it's House Peg is where you get this one. Sorry, give me a moment here. House Peg.
The Empire requires your assistance.
Starship trait Point Blank. Yep, there you go. So you get that from House Peg. Very good trait. Basically, the closer you are to the target, you get a damage buff. It's up to a 10% bonus energy weapon based on distance to target. So when you're up to 2 kilometers away, you get the max, and if you're beyond 6 kilometers, you don't get anything. So it scales up between 2 to 6 kilometers. And normally you want to be as close to your target as possible anyway, just because of the fall-off damage. Even for beams, now that they've standardized beams and cannons fall-off damage, you want to be as close to the target as possible anyway. That said, with the new, when they redid their skill system, they added this new skill for long-range targeting, which basically reduces the penalty for your for your damage range fall off. It reduces it by a lot. I believe if you have all three here, it reduces it by 100% or by half, I believe. Each rank reduces the maximum penalty by 10%. So that's really good. So normally if you were at 10 kilometers away, you'd be doing half damage, but with this you'd still be doing, would that be 80%? Wow, that's pretty good. So it's actually very, very good. It makes your weapon damage fall off a lot less. So even at max range, you'll be doing a lot more damage, and even at middle range, you'll be doing a little bit more damage. And so you still want to be as close to your target as possible, but it's not as punishing as it used to be now when you're farther away. And it's also, particularly for cannons, this is a nice buff, because cannons used to have double the fall off of beams, and now they're both standardized, so it's very good. Very good trait. All right, let's keep going here. Now finally, this is kind of a flex slot. There are some different things you could put in here. Anchored is a very good trait. So when you're standing still, you get a damage buff. Since this is a Beamscort, you know, anchored's not what I'm going for here. I'm going for full throttle all the time. As far as like other traits, you could put crippling fire in there. If you had some of the other good lockbox traits like fluidic cocoon or ablative shell, those could easily go there. The only reason I picked elusive is because one of the things about a Beamscort that's really cool, and the fact that you're always going to be at full throttle, is that you will always have a high defense buff. Well, if you'll notice something here, if you go here, see my bonus defense right now at rest is 30. Now let's go up to full throttle here. So my bonus defense at full throttle is 100. I have 100 bonus defense. That means a lot of things are going to be missing me. That, I don't know if I call it a speed tank. That's more of an EVE Online thing, but you kind of are a speed tank here. You're up to 100 defense while at full throttle. And since I'm always at full throttle with a Beamscort build, and I'm running pedal to the metal, it just synergizes well having all that scaling defense. So the idea here is you're not as squishy because you're not getting hit as much, and that's a big defense bonus. So I do kind of like the extra little bit you get from elusive. And the other thing that this goes well with, now that we're done with the personal traits, let's go into the starship traits here, is that this also works very well with this trait right here called reciprocity. You get this trait from the Phantom Escort, or if you are on a Romulan or Klingon side, I believe you would get it from one of the lockbox traits. They should be on the exchange. Might be a little bit pricey, but with the Infinity Lockbox, I think they're a little bit more affordable. Actually, I don't even know if the Infinity Lockbox does the Starship traits. There was something missing from the Infinity Lockbox. I can't remember if it was the Starship traits. But in any case, reciprocity, basically whenever you are missed, it will trigger a 10% recharge reduction time on intel and tactical abilities. So your override subsystem safeties and your beamfire at wills and everything else, I'm going to stop spinning around here, will all get a reduced recharge time. Very, very, very nice trait. Especially for example, a Beamscort build. It just synergizes really well because you're always going to be at full throttle. You're always going to have that high defense. Works very well with reciprocity. Now the other traits here, I am running all hands on deck. You get this from the Tactical Command Cruiser. That's a Zen ship you can buy. This one is again also very good because it reduces recharge times. So basically whenever you let's see, what is it? Activating a tactical, so whenever you use a tactical ability or a command bridge officer ability, it will reduce the recharge time on science abilities and, most importantly, captain abilities. There are not very many things that reduce recharge on captain abilities. So, for example, your recharge on like your attack pattern alpha, your go down fighting, and so on. So this is a very nice ability for that. One of the few things that will reduce captain ability recharge. And it gives you, it can trigger once every 5 seconds, so it gives you that little, it recharge time reduction every 5 seconds, assuming you're activating powers quickly. As soon as as long as you're activating your attack patterns and your chemocytes and your beam fire at wills, you should be able to get this, maybe not every 5 seconds, but pretty close. Very good trait. And then the other trait here, another staple, you get this one off of the Tier 6 Arbiter, another Zen ship. This one is a very good trait because this is, I consider, one of the top traits in the game right now. Basically, whenever you use emergency power to weapons, which is a great bridge officer ability you want to always run anyway, but whenever you use that, it will give you, for 30 seconds, it'll give you a minus 25% weapon power cost reduction. Very nice. Again, that works just like the Elite Fleet Warp Core, where it reduces the power your weapons cost to fire, which means your EPS and it will help keep your weapon power maximized out during the firing cycle. It also gives you a 20% firing cycle haste for 30 seconds, and haste is actually very good since they fixed the firing cycle haste to work. It actually is a very, very good buff. It does cycle your weapons faster, and it does give you a good DPS bonus. Very good trait. I already talked about reciprocity. Another trait I run here is supremacy. Now this one is a harder trait to get. Excuse me. And this one you have to actually get from is a lockbox ship. Is it a lockbox or is it a low-buy ship? It might be a low-buy ship. It is the Vodwar Astica. The Vodwar Astica will give you this trait. And this is kind of like a plasmonic leech that triggers whenever you use fire at will. Or scatter volley. So if you use scatter volley or fire at will, then it will trigger this to happen, where it will stack up to 10 times. Basically, it will give you +2 all power settings, and it lasts for 15 seconds. So if you can trigger a fire at will every 15 seconds, you can almost keep this up permanently. It's a little bit airy. There might be some downtime, but you can keep it up quite well. Honestly, while you're, because you're almost, it will drop off sometimes, but it's pretty easy to keep up in the thick of combat while all your beam fire wheels are cycling out. So this with Plasmonic Leech is basically like a power bonanza. You'll see when I'm in combat, almost all of my power systems will be maxed out. So that's another very, very good trait. And then, of course, improved pedal to metal, which I already talked about. This is a key to the Beamscort build because you want to be at full throttle and stacking that up all the time. All right, as far as space rep traits, I'll just go through these quickly. You get these all from your reputation system, and they come at various tiers. Some you get at tier 2, some you get at tier 4. Just quickly going through these here. Some of these are staple ones. Precision, that's flat out 4% crit. You want that on pretty much every build. You got your advanced targeting system. This is from, I believe, Dyson Rep. This one's from Romulan Rep. This one's from Dyson Rep. Basically flat out 16% crit severity, very good. Enhanced armor pen, another very good trait. Gives you 5% armor pen on all of your weapons. It's not as good as it used to be in the old days. The way pen worked was a little bit strange, but they recently changed how armor penetration works, kind of standardized it and flattened it out so it stacks a little differently now. Even with all the changes, armor pen is still very good, and it's actually almost more valuable now because it's harder to. You have to stack up a lot more to flatten out an enemy's armor. So to reduce their armor, basically reducing that enemy armor is basically increasing your damage going to them, and you can actually put them into negative armor. So it is an actual damage bonus. So it's good trait. Now these two traits I actually do really like. Now the first one is Aux Power Configuration Offense. This is a new Kara trait. And when you have a high aux power, this scales with your aux power, and it gives you can see right here with my aux power I have, it's up to 4.2% all damage and 4.2% accuracy. This is a Cat 2 bonus, so it's very good. I believe it goes up to 5% once you're at 100% aux. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's 5% all damage for a space trait. That's actually very, very good. The only trick is you have to keep your aux power high, which, you know, with plasmatic leech and everything else going, that's not a problem at all. And I don't run like a aux to bat build, so if you're running an aux to bat build, I would not use this trait. But I'm running actually a Drake build, which is works fine with this trait. And then the aux power config defense. This again you could swap out. There are other options out there. I like it because, again, it scales with aux power, and it actually gives you quite a bit of tankiness for just one space trait. Again, I like to have some survivability. I do run a lot with pickup groups, and it means I do end up getting a lot of aggro, and it's nice to have some defense to do that. But you can see it's pretty solid. It gives you a kinetic, all energy damage, resistance rating, max hull, and max shield capacity all in one trait. Pretty decent as far as defensive traits go. I'm using all 4 of the active space rep traits here. I won't go through these all here, but you've got your what I'm seeing, that's like your Poor Man's Cloak for temporary to drop aggro. You've got your Biomolecular Shield from the Undine rep. You've got your Tetrion Cascade from, I believe, Nukara. And the new one here is the Sensor Interference Platform from the Terran rep. All right, so next thing here, let's take a look at the bridge officers that I will be using for this build. All right, so this is a Beamscort build, so I will be using a lot of fire at wills and, of course, override subsystem safeties. All right, so let's go into it here. In the Lieutenant Commander Universal, I did also put in Chemocyte Lace Weaponry 1 here. Now, like I said, that Infinity Lockbox is an amazing thing, and it has dropped the price on a lot of things, in particular Inspirational Leader, Chemocyte Lace Weaponry, and a lot of the other traits as well, and Plasmatic Leech. So much drop in price for these things that it actually brought it down into a reasonable price where I could afford. So this is the first time I've ever done a build video with Chemocyte Laced Weaponry. I've been using it for a while. I really like it. Basically, these things add, when you click this, it basically adds a little radiation damage explosion to your weapons. So it's a little extra damage there, and it reduces the damage resistance of the foe. So all around, a very good little ability there. Especially in ships like this, like if you have like an ensign tactical just floating around, you can't go wrong. If you got a Chemocyte 1, just throw that into your ensign tactical slot, and you're good to go. Now I am running override subsystem safeties. These basically are incredible. These are one of the best intel abilities, probably the best intel ability, just bar none. Basically what it does is it removes the damage cap from all of your power systems. So basically gives you, here for example, looking at override subsystem safeties 3 or OSS 3, this gives you 50% 50 to your max and current power level. And when you're running with Plasmatic Leech and everything else, that's going to take your max weapon power, all the way up to 150, and your other systems too. And then it slowly decays down from there for 20 seconds, and then once it decays all the way back to where it was, all of your systems, random subsystem will go offline for 2 seconds. And the lower ranks actually goes offline for a little bit longer. So that's the downside. You get this 20-second massive boost of power and damage. But after that, you get one of your subsystems goes offline, which is one of the nice things about the Iconian rep is those hot restarts will bring it right back online. So pretty handy, works well. So I run 2 of those just to keep the uptime as high as possible. I don't remember what the shared cooldown is. Let's take a look. 20 seconds. So it's almost up perma between the two. It's got a shared cooldown of 20 seconds and then 45-second cooldown on the one. Alright, so I do like to run 2 copies of Beamfire at Will, just to make sure it's always up. And I do run Attack Pattern Beta for when Omega is not available. Attack Pattern Beta is good for that damage resistance debuff. I mean, this thing is a debuffing master. I mean, you've got your, if you're running Probability Manipulation, you've got Attack Pattern Beta, and you've got your Chemosite, you've got your trait. I mean, you've got tons of armor debuffs going out. So it's actually very good for increasing damage, applied damage to the enemy. I do like to run at least 1 TAC team, so I threw that here in the Ensign. Now for the Engineer, Lieutenant Commander here, since this is a Lieutenant Commander, I highly recommend using Emergency Powered Weapons 3. Very good ability. Nice damage bonus, just flat out. And with the build I'm using, called the Drake build, this will be up pretty much 100% of the time. There is a randomness to it, but most of the time it will be up. I'll explain the Drake build a little bit more when I get to the duty officers, but basically a Drake build is where you run 2 emergency power abilities. So here I'm running weapons and shields, and then you run the Doffs that reduce the cooldown. So basically when you cycle these 2 powers, and I just have a macro that cycles these 2, you can keep them up almost permanent. Not quite, because there is some randomness because of the Doffs, but almost permanent. So you only need to run 1 copy of each. And if you don't have a lot of engineering slots, bridge officer slots, the Drake build works really well. If you're not going to have a Drake build, I recommend actually running 2 copies of emergency powered weapons, but in this case I am running the emergency powered shields and emergency powered weapons. And then here in the lieutenant slot, I do have the engineering team. Just very nice for clearing debuffs and for the hull heal. And then the science, pretty much whenever all I have is lieutenant science. I mean, what I always put in here is these 2 abilities. I think these are the 2 best survivability abilities if you're not like a deep science, if you're not going for the damaging abilities. And that is, of course, science team and hazard emitters. Both are very nice. Both will clear debuffs. The hazard emitters is actually a very nice hull heal, and doesn't also increase your increases your damage resistance rating. So while it's running, it also gives you some damage resistance. I do like hazard emitters a lot, but it gets rid of those plasma burns, and then science team will get rid of things like placate, which is very annoying. So very good. Engineering, you can actually use the engineering team also to bring on your, sometimes your subsystems go offline. With the hot restarts, you don't need it too much, but engineering team does help there too. It will bring your, like after an OSS, after the drop off and your system goes offline, if you really want it back right away, you could use your engineering team for that. All right. So that is the bridge officers. All right, finally let's go to the duty officers, and then let's actually get back into taking a look at the ship and take it into action. So we're getting there. So duty officers. Nothing too special here. I am running a... Oops. Yeah, okay, yeah, this is right. I am running a Drake build, like I said, and key to the Drake build is you have to run 3 of your damage control engineers. And basically the way these work is each one of these has a percentage chance. I'm only running blue here. You could run purple, it would be even better. But each one of these has a 30% chance to reduce the recharge time by 30% of your emergency power abilities. So both emergency power to shields and weapons will have their recharge time reduced. Since they each have a 45-second cooldown, and they have a shared cooldown of 30 seconds, so basically every 30 seconds one of them will be going off. And every 30 seconds, you have 3 officers here, so each one of these has a 30% chance to reduce the recharge time. If any one of these triggers, you're good, because then that will reduce the recharge time on your emergency power abilities, and it will keep them up perma. If you could get away with fewer, if you wanted even more randomness to it. I like having 3 because that seems to be pretty pretty stable, keeping both of your emergency power abilities up all the time. There is randomness to it. If during a cycle, if all three of them don't trigger, there might be a short downtime before the next emergency power 2 ability will be coming up. But that works well because it synergizes with your other traits, like your emergency weapon cycle. You want to keep it up as much as you can, and so on. So it does synergize well with the build to keep up your emergency power abilities all the time. So 3 of those, and this is a cheap build. This is why I like this so much. These are not super expensive Doffs. I don't have a Zamock. I don't have a Marion Francis, so my options are limited here, and I find that a Drake build is just very effective for a pretty inexpensive cost. Good for new players and still very effective even up into the end game. For my other 2 slots here, I do like to run a Count Officer to reduce the recharge time of Tactical Team. I only run 1 copy of Tactical Team, so that's nice to have. And then I do have Agent Nurul. He is from the Delta Operations pack. He gives you, whenever you have Attack Pattern Beta running, it does give you a little bit of a self-heal. So it's kind of a cool ability. The healing's not huge, but it is there. Whew, alright, so there is the build in detail. If you were able to stick through that, I appreciate it. Like I said, I do like to go into a lot of detail just to explain it to newer players, because there are so many systems in Star Trek Online. I don't know, what level of knowledge people have when watching my videos, so I like to at least explain things in detail, at least point people in the right direction so they know where they can get all these equipment, what kind of traits are good and why you want to slot them, how they synergize together, and so forth. And so you can see how everything here kind of synergizes with beam arrays, keeping my energy weapon cost down, and keeping my damage buffs up by staying at full throttle. So that everything kind of synergizes towards that goal. And having a high defense with reciprocity keeps my recharges low again. So it just all kind of synergizes together, works well together, and it just fits with the Beamscort. All right, so now that we've done all that, let's take a look at so I'm out here outside space dock. Let's take a look at the ship itself a little bit closer here, the visuals. So I did kind of show it initially when I went out into space, but let me show you what visuals I do have equipped here. I am using the super cooled combat impulse engines, which is very cool. On this ship, when you use the super cooled, I was going through all the different visuals on this ship. You can see the super cooled engines gives you like this little blue glowy ball in the middle of your ship. It looks really cool. I like it a lot. And when you move, it leaves like a nice little trail. So that is the engine you get from, if you do the Breen story arc, this is the engine you get from that. So it's the Breen engine. It looks very, very, very cool on this ship. You can see there, every 2 seconds, you see that little that proc right there. That is the pedal to the metal. That's every 2 seconds you get that stacking buff. Improved pedal to metal right there. Unfortunately, the icon doesn't show the number of stacks anymore. They got rid of that for performance reasons. Apparently, it was causing issues where it unfortunately would not show. I'm actually kind of curious here. Does it show? Well, yeah, you can't see how many you have stacked up anymore, unfortunately. But you can see here I must be at max stacks because I'm not. You don't see it proccing every 2 seconds anymore. But that is what it looks like. And you can see here if I drop down to 3/4 throttle, boom, you can see it drops off almost right away. Go back up to full throttle, and you'll see it start stacking up. See, there you go. So you do have to maintain full throttle with this build. That is a key, and that's why, that's why the beam arrays are kind of needed. That's why I think that Beamscorts really work well with pedal to metal, is because it's too hard to keep things in your frontal arc when you're going at full throttle. It's just too hard in practical terms when you're in a mission. Whereas keeping things on the broadside, you can just kind of either circle around them, or you can stay at a far away arc, at a larger arc, and stay in the rear for longer. It just works so much better. But yeah, just taking a look at the visuals of the ship here. It's a very, let's close out of that. Very nice visuals. Very cool looking ship. I think it looks just like the White Star, which is perfectly fine with me because the White Star is an awesome looking ship. Very nice looking. You can see what the turn radius is here. It's pretty fast turn radius, but it's not as fast as other escorts. It just isn't. But it's still a pretty good turn rate. It's still a maneuverable ship, but just not up there to the faster escorts. Oh, and I'm using also the Dyson Regenerative Shield. I think I mentioned that earlier, but if you're wondering also, that's the Dyson Regenerative Shield gives it this nice kind of the blue, kind of see it right there, kind of the blue glow, the blue lines glowing, kind of the shimmering look on the hull. So a very nice looking ship. Pretty decently maneuverable, although not as good as other escorts, which is kind of the theme of the ship. It is a heavy escort, so it is more survivable, has more hull, but less turn. That's the trade-off. You can see the stats here for the build. You can see here my power transfer rate is not the best in the world, honestly. I need to work on that. If I could, I can't really afford a conductive RCS. I mean, it's on my list, but yeah, it's not there yet. So I'm just running at 10 energy per second, which is why it's so important for me to reduce weapon cost, you know, which is why a lot of traits and things I had were to reduce weapon cost, and also the Borg 2 piece. It's because my EPS is not the best, so reducing weapon cost helps a lot. But with my build, you can see here at full throttle, I'm at 100% defense, 60k hull. Pretty solid. I mean, that's pretty good for an escort. Shields are at 13,000. Not bad. I get a little bit of a buff there from, I mean, it is a resilient shield, and it is an escort with a pretty low modifier, so that's not bad shields. Resistances are pretty good. So my crit chance is 28%. Crit severity, 109. Not too bad. Any skills I need to show here? I guess that's about it. So those are the stats you can you'll see when I do a run, what kind of damage and stuff this ship is capable of with these stats. All right, so let's go ahead and just head back into Starfleet here and take a look at the ship Tailor. By the way, this ship looks really cool with the counter command shield. I might actually show this. If I don't forget, at the end of the video, I'll switch over to my Romulan character, who actually I have the counter command shield on. But this ship, oh yeah, that's right, the Tailor's down here. The ship looks fantastic. It looks like a Vorlon ship from Babylon 5, not a Vorgon ship, which is what it is. It is a Vorgon ship, but it actually looks like a Vorlon ship. If you put the counter command and make it kind of that greenish look, it looks a lot like a Vorlon ship. It looks very cool. So yeah, very much it seems to me like a Babylon 5 type style, which is cool. I do like the style of the ship. And not the ship selector, I don't want you. I want the customize. Alright, so well, before I do that, I better take off this. I said, let's just unequip it here, unequip. All right, so here is the default. No, that's not the default. That has the Iconian. All right, hold on a second. I gotta disable a few more visuals here. Disable. The new visual slots are very nice, but here we go. Here is the default look. Not very much as far as customization goes. If you go over here, you can change the skin to have, if you want to get rid of the kind of tiger stripes there. And then actually with none, it just looks like tiger fur. So you can have tiger fur or tiger stripes. Take your pick. The coloring here does actually change the color, so you can change the color of the stripes if you want to make it, you know, red. If you want to make it green, you can give it green stripes, and this changes the color of the background fur. I don't know why I'm calling it fur, but that's what it looks like. So there it is. That is basically the limit here. There's no other materials, no other windows. It does give the Vorgon bridge though, so that's cool. They did put the effort in to put in a custom bridge. But yeah, that is pretty much there. I think your best bet for customization is just to take advantage of the visual slots here. I like the Dyson Regenerative. The counter command also looks very good. The Jem'Hadar looks very good on this one. A lot of the shields do, so it does mesh very well with a lot of the reputation shields. Alright, so that is enough talk. I think I've pretty much covered everything there is to cover there. As far as the build and the ship stats and everything, let's take this thing into action and see how it performs. What I'd like to do here is just do a run of... let's do an Argala run first. And in the Argala run, I will show... There we go. Yep, in the Argala run, I will... Let's go ahead and warp to the Death Quadrant. In the Argala run, I do want to show basically the ship trait and the ship console in action. But like I said, I don't think they're the best performing. The console is more focused towards Tetrion. If you had a Tetrion build, I would recommend to use the console. And the trait is a little bit gimmicky. You know, the one extra mine every 20 seconds or a couple extra mines every 20 seconds, that it just does not amount to much at all as far as DPS goes. So I don't see it actually being that great of a trait in the grander scheme. Pretty lackluster. You can see the super cold engine there is doing work as far as very cool looking. Very cool looking in sector space. Alright, I usually like to crank up the difficulty at least a little bit. I'll just go to advanced for this run. If I do it on normal, everything dies too quick and you don't get a chance to see anything. But for this, I do need to swap out traits here because I did want to test out the Harasser Mines, which is the trait, and I did have the console on there still, did I not? Yes, I do. All right, let's patrol Argala. So I do really like this ship as a Beamscort build. It is performs quite well in the testing I've done so far. I haven't done a whole lot. It's only been out. I've only had this ship for a day, so that super cooled engine looks very awesome.
Warning, ship is under attack.
All right, so for these guys, let me see if I can get up close and show the Harasser Mines. Benthans are picking on this one. Let's pick on this guy. So I'm just going to use a beam fire at will and then shoot this guy. I didn't see the Harasser Mines. I did have it slotted, right? Yeah, I do. Well, I'll try it again here. Sometimes they're hard to see. When I was testing it earlier, they're very small, hard to target. Try it one more time here. Let's do a beam fire at will. Let's open fire. Is that it? Aha! There it is. There's a Chronoton mine. You see it? It disappeared very quickly. They do appear close, so that's pretty much it. They could appear right next to them every 20 seconds, and then they hit them and do a little extra damage. Not much to it. But let's go ahead and throw out the Harasser probes, and let's start actually using some of my abilities here and start mowing these guys down. So here are my little probes. See, he's shooting away. He actually got damaged. See, there's Harasser probe. doing his job. It's actually kind of look cool. I like how it's almost like I guess a poor man's hangar bay almost. Alright, so let's actually get into how you fly this thing. So I'm at full throttle. This is what you want to do. You want to be at full throttle. Now you may want to try to stay in their rear arc, which is, you can do. That way you get your flanking bonuses if you're spec'd into intel. Oh, you know what? I never showed my specs. I'll show my spec after this real quick. I am spec'd, deeply into intel, and then my secondary spec is strategist. Sorry I didn't show that earlier. I should have been there when I was on the skill page. You can see even on advanced it's making very quick work of these Kazon carriers. I haven't even blown any of my other major cooldowns yet either. But you can see here I can stay at full throttle the whole time. I get nice hitting for good damage, get nice bonuses on all, that all damage bonus from pedal to metal. The only downside of a Beamscort type build is, just the lack of like an alpha strike. Like a dual heavy cannons, of course, will have a really powerful alpha strike. The Beamscort build like this is more about the sustain damage and sustain at full throttle and being very maneuverable. When you're at full throttle, you can see they're missing a lot. A lot of their weapons don't even hit when you're at full throttle. It works out very well. It makes you a little bit more tanky, a little more survivable, and still cranks out the damage. Okay, so for these guys, I am going to go ahead and blow my cooldowns here. I'm going to go ahead and do Science, Attack Pattern Alpha, this. I'm going to use my Iconian. Let's put out Harasser Probes. Let's go ahead and put fire on my mark there. Get all kinds of damage. And boom, look at that string of crits. I mean, this thing is it's no joke. When you got this Science ultimate going, you got your Attack Baron Alpha going, Tag Team, this thing cranks out insane amounts of damage. So it's a very solid ship. You can see it performed very well there in a advanced Argala Patrol. Even when I was just spending more time goofing around showing the actual Harasser Mines and the Harasser Probes. The Harasser Probes I actually kind of like. The Harasser Mines are meh. The Harasser Probes are kind of cool. They can float around, they shoot them with their little Tetragons, they have a long duration, and the passives from the console are good if you're running a Tetragon build. So, pretty decent console if you got the Tetragons. Alright, and then just looking at my parser real quick here, that was obviously not a good parsing run, but my parser, that was a 26K run. I think in ISA it will do much better. And speaking of ISA, let's go ahead and do that here. I do like to do a pug run of ISA. I'm going to back up a little bit because I don't want this thing sitting in the middle of my screen. Let's take a look at this. I did say I would take a look at my starship traits. Oh no, sorry, not starship traits. My starship specializations. But isn't that super cool? The engine contrail, really cool. The super cool engine looks amazing on this ship. All right, let me do that real quick. Traits, let's go over to, oh sorry, it's in skills. I think the reason why I miss it now is specializations used to be its own tab. Now it's in the skill tab. Half the time I just forget about it. But you can see here I am Intel. I am maxed out Intel. I do still highly recommend Intel for for all of its flanking capabilities. For the precision offensive, or Intel fleet is very good. So still a very good spec. Now coming with Agents of Yesterday in just a couple days here, actually tomorrow. Holy cow! With coming with Agents of Yesterday, we're getting the new temporal spec. Which we'll see. That might dethrone intelligence as the top DPS, but for now, intelligence is the way to go, and I am maxed out in it. So that is my primary. For secondary, I do like strategist. So just because of it has the while not in your threatening stance, it gives you all the extra crit chance. And just the bonuses are really, really nice. Also, when you actually use your diversionary tactics, when you're not in threatening stance, it does give you that less threat, and it placates the foes. And has all kinds of nice little bonuses here. Yep, bonuses to all damage, bonuses to regen and shield. Just very nice when you're. So it has a nice clicky and nice passives. So. I did used to run Pilot as my secondary. Pilot is also still very good. If you want to run that as your secondary, it is very good. To get Pedal to the Metal, you do have to have your Pilot up to get the improved Pedal to the Metal. I believe you have to have it maxed, if I'm not mistaken here. Yep, improved Pedal to the Metal. You do have to have it fully maxed out to get this trait. So that is, yeah, to get improved Pedal to the Metal, you do need to invest into Pilot very deeply. You don't have to have Pilot as your active specialization, but you do have to max it out to just unlock that trait. All right, so sorry I forgot to mention that about the specializations earlier. But let's go ahead and queue up for an ISA and see how this thing performs. If the queue doesn't pop right away, I will do a jump cut, just in case. Where are you? There you are. So yeah, Beamscorts are a lot of fun. Flying around at full throttle, zipping in and out of combat. Well, sorry, zipping around while in combat. So the whole thing with the Beamscort is you want to stay in combat, you want to stay on target the whole time. If you're, if you like the strafing run and then doing that, you're better off with a forward firing build. But I just like the way Beamscorts fly. It's so easy to keep enemies in your weapon arc all the time. All right, here we go. Ooh, we got a Tholian. Tholian Tarantula.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target shields have failed.
Okay, let's take out this cube here. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and use that. I'm gonna use this.
Right shield failing.
Let's go in the transformer. Let's go ahead and blow my thing. Let's blow that. Let's blow this. Holy cow, this team is making mincemeat. Let's go over here and have some fun with the spheres. Let's keep them broadside. Very cool. Let's go over here to the cube. This group is really good. I can already tell we're just blowing through this thing. The only downside to a group like this is that you don't get your cooldowns back fast enough to actually... Let's get on the transformer. There we go. Make sure we take that thing down. Oh, let's go ahead and use that. I was not paying attention to my damage. Alright. Yeah, this is a very good group. I'm already looking at... Some of the people are parsing here at 60k. Let's go ahead and use that. I'm going to go ahead and use this while I'm in the middle here. I don't want to get too much aggro. I'm going to take out these... Oh my gosh, don't hurt me, don't kill me. Tractor beam is destroying me. Let's go ahead and use that, let's use that, let's use this, let's use this. Please don't die. Let's take out this gate. Yes, I see my hull integrity is low, thank you very much. I'm going to put this out. I just flew out of it. I don't want to slow down. Gateway's down. Man, this group is amazing. We're blowing through this stuff. Any other cooldowns here I can blow? Ooh, get my Iconian cooldowns back up. Whew, that was a really good run. Holy cow, nice. Definitely got the GG there. Holy cow. That was an incredibly good team. And I will go ahead and let's go ahead and exit out here. Oh crap, I forgot to put on my supremacy trait, didn't I? So I did that whole thing with harasser mines. Oh, that's a bummer. That'll probably cost me a little bit of DPS. But hey, you know what? Let's parse it. Let's check out what the harasser mines actually did. Because I do actually want to see how much they actually did in an ISA run. So, alright, let's go ahead and leave the map. But that was a very good run. I'm looking at the parser right now. Just top level here. The top person there was 77k DPS. I did 76k DPS. The next guy down was 35. So even the other people in the group are really good. So this was a really, really good team. You saw how fast everything went down there. That was a really good pickup group. So yeah, if you just give me a quick moment here, I do have to tab over to my parser. So you might hear the game sound cut out a little bit here, but I do want to analyze log. And I do want to... I do got to pull up this window here. Okay, hopefully you guys can see the parser window. And you can see what I did right there. So yep, like I said, I did 76, almost 77k. The top person was 77k. And everyone else did really good. I mean, even the lowest person here was above 12k. That's what I like to see. So that was an excellent team for a pickup group. Now I do want to see what my actual breakdown. So let me go into analysis here by player. You can't see that window, can you? Let's do window capture. Let's create a new. Here we go. All right, so you should be able to see the combat details here now. And let's switch over to me. I am parallel and damage. All right, so let's see the breakdown of the damage here. I'm already laughing. Look at this. Mine explosion did 120. Oh, it's so bad. Or no, 120,000. Sorry, but only 730 DPS. No, anyway. So let's take a look. So Beamfire at Will, of course, was my top DPS because this is a Beamscort. As you saw in my build, everything was around Fire at Will. Reduced weapon power cost, increased, decreased cooldowns to keep them up all the time. Pedal to the metal, keeping everything maxed out at damage, keeping everything in my arc. So this is all about the Beamfire at Will. You can see that did 40,000 DPS, pretty good. Phaser array. This is just when it must have been when I was not in FA. Yeah, that's my not in FA damage. 20,000 DPS there. Pets. So that was I did use fleet support, but I wonder if that also includes the harasser probes. I'm not sure if it gives it more of a breakdown than pets. I'll have to take a look at that. But total pet damage is actually not bad. So the fleet support did good job. And then the harasser probes, I assume, did some of that. So that's about 5,400 DPS. The cutting beam did a little less than that, 5,000 some DPS. So the cutting beam is still decent. It's, of course, not as good as your phaser arrays, but it's still not too bad. And it gives you that 2-piece bonus, which helps a lot. Plasma explosions did only 3,600. That was only with 1 plasma console. So you can see this scales quite well. If you had 5 plasma consoles on there, your plasma explosion damage would be very impressive. Hemocyte explosions did 1,700 DPS. Not bad for a ensign level ability. Plus, it doesn't really count the reduction to armor in there, so that's another nice thing with the Chemocyte. And then finally, the Chronoton Mines. That was from the trait, the Starship trait for the Xyfius Escort. Gives you those Chronoton Mines. It did a whole whopping 700 DPS. I mean, it's not 0. It's not too bad, I guess. But, if I had put... I'm sure if I had put Supremacy in there, it would have given you a lot more damage to my beams than just a mere 700 DPS. And this is odd. Chemocyte Explosion Chronoton Mines. So does Chemocyte actually proc from the mines? From the trait? That's kind of crazy. But kind of cool, I guess. It did almost 0 damage, but kind of interesting to know that Chemocyte procs off the mines from the trait. But there it is. There's the weapon and damage breakdown. So let's wrap it up here. Final thoughts on the Tier 6 Vorgon Xyfius Escort. It is a good ship. It's a solid escort. I would put it right in the middle of the pack of escorts. The flavor of this escort is that it is more of a heavy escort, not as maneuverable, but a little more survivable. And you can see the build I did here with the Beamscort, I think works very well on this particular ship. You could, of course, run a more forward-firing build, but, as I explained earlier when I was talking about Beamscorts, the 4-3 layout, the slower turn rate, everything like that, I think it really makes this particular escort work well with a Beamscort build. But it all went really well. I mean, this is a free ship, so getting a Tier 6, kind of a middle-of-the-road escort for a free Tier 6, free event ship, it's not bad at all. I mean, for new players, this is an excellent ship. Is this going to replace like my Fleet Phantom? Probably not. My Fleet Phantom is amazing. It's actually very similar to a Fleet Phantom, but Fleet Phantom has, a couple extra things to it. It has that really nice phaser cannon console, spinal lance. It's got a couple other little things that I think put it over the top, as the cloak for one. They put it over the top of the Xyfius, but the Xyfius is no slouch, and it's a solid escort. As far as downsides go, I've already mentioned the slower speed. It really does act more like a destroyer than an escort. At the slower speed, it's not quite as maneuverable. You're not going to be running circles around things like an Fayette or other faster escorts out there. And just the... like I said, it does have the Intel seating, which is very, very nice. So that's what makes me want to compare it to like a Fleet Phantom. So I'd say it's slightly below the Fleet Phantom as far as ranking goes. I still would prefer the Fleet Phantom, but the Intel seating on it is good. The Bridge Officer layout is good. The console layout is a little bit lacking in the science area, so that's one of the downsides. The Fleet Phantom, I believe, has 3 science, which is another nice little advantage there. But still, like I said, it's a solid performing ship. You could see with my build there, with a Beamscort build, I was getting, into the 70k. 70k range. So hey, it's a well-performing ship. I'm sure some of the pro DPSers could probably get this thing up into the 100k plus range. So that it's not a slouch. It's a good free ship. And like I say, the looks of the ship are fantastic. This thing looks amazing with the super cooled engine. You got your Dyson shield on there. That looks really good. That is pure sex. Now, like I said, this is a very good ship. I definitely recommend doing the grinding out the summer event to get this thing. And, you know, for those of you out there who got this, enjoy. I think it's a good, solid ship. And particularly if you had a Tetrion build, I think would work really well in this. With that console, a Tetrion build I think would be perfect for this. But there it is, everyone. That is the Vorgon Xyfius Tier 6 Heavy Escort. That's how it performs. Performs well. It's a free ship. You can get it with grinding the summer event. I don't know if there's enough days left to grind this out. You may, if you haven't started yet, you may need to buy some of the things with low buy to be able to get enough of the tickets before the event expires. But I would recommend doing it if you have not. And congrats to everyone out there who already has it. Enjoy it. It is a fun ship to fly, and it looks great. All right. That is all. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Bye for now.